Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Stacey Campbell. I am with Express Information Systems, and we're here to talk about budgeting and spreadsheets and how Martus can help you make your life easier. We have a few representatives here from Martus with us, Joseph and Rita. So if you have questions throughout, we can definitely talk about that as we walk through this process. But again, my name is Stacey Campbell. I'm with Express Info. I'm the Director of Business Development. And thank you so much for joining us today. So we're talking about spreadsheets and how they're holding you back, why people think it's time to upgrade. Well, Excel has been amazing and it has been your companion for so many years. It's been flexible and a familiar way to budget, but as you grow and you get bigger, spreadsheets are limiting. You don't have the ability to collaborate in real time. There's a lot of difficulties with integrating and scaling operations. I've talked to people who have pages and pages with thousands of lines, and that's just not an efficient way to budget. So these are some of the signs that we've talked about with some of the customers that I've had about how it's becoming hard to trust that data, wasting time on manual processes, frequent data errors, difficulty assessing data in real time, too large, like I said, just pages and pages with thousands of lines, the ability to forecast in advance. Spreadsheets can't do audit trails, which I do here quite often, have difficulty integrating with the tech stack you have. A lot of our customers are on Sage Intacct or Dynamics 365 Business Central, so trouble integrating with that. And of course, finally, lack of collaboration, which in these days is growing in importance every single day. So this is a quote I took, and this pile of folders made me think about how complicated and sometimes budgeting Excel can be in today's mission-driven environment. Professionals in nonprofits need more than ever technical expertise. They must also think strategically and collaborate across departments to maximize their impact. And that's really struck home for me because I know how important an impact is for nonprofits. And if you're spending time budgeting and you're not able to collaborate on it, it just makes it not efficient and maybe not accurate. So that's just so incredibly important, especially in the nonprofit world. So now let's talk about Martus and embracing a cloud-based budgeting solution. And I love this line which says, embark on your journey to financial clarity. That to me really says a lot because that's what budgeting does for you, is it lets you have that clarity for past, present, and future. It's automated data entry with real-time updates, robust error checking with automated calculations, nothing's manual like you do in an Excel spreadsheet, real-time data syncing with your ERP system, no matter, Martus connects to so many different systems. Capability of handling scaling complexity. A lot of our customers start out small, maybe they're 1 or 2 million and grow to 20, 30, 40, 100 million. So Martus can grow with you as you move forward. Powerful forecasting tools. Really important to having those detailed audit trails. Difficulty integrating into the tech stack and collaborative budgeting. These are all the things that you think about and you want in your solution. And then strength of collaborative budgeting. That's something that Martus is really, really strong, and they talk so incredibly, it's important to them how collaborative budgeting enhances that transparency, how every team member gets to contribute, ensuring you have all these different perspectives when you put this your budget together. And it also gives stakeholders accountability. So everybody feels that they are accountable for what you've done. They've had input, and so that creates a more rounded full budget, allowing you to move forward with what you're doing in your mission. Why Martus? Such a great question. I love this picture of this girl. It really made me think about, look how happy she looks, and that's how your emotions are when you're having a successful budget. You just want to go out and have a big cheer because budgeting can be so stressful. Emotional transformation, going from feeling overwhelmed to empowered. Your team is aligned, so you have a vision of success. And finally, practical outcomes. improves forecasting, and better insights equal faster decision making. And we all know that faster decision making is the key to overall success. All right, well, here's my beautiful slide of how Martus looks. And I'm going to stop sharing my window and pass it on over to Joseph, who's going to give you a beautiful demo of Martus.
All right, well, I'm going to get my screen share going. Thank you, Stacey. And
Pleasure.
make sure you can see my screen here. Should be showing now. Okay,
Sure.
great. Yep, and if there are questions as we go through, if that gets dropped in the chat or the Q&A, just let us know, and happy to address those along the way. So I'll give you just a little bit of a overview of what we're going to take a look at here in Martus. I'll expand my menu first, and you're going to see a few different areas, one of them being this dashboard area. Here we're going to find some quick pre-built reports, as well as a custom report builder. And I can also talk a little bit about how Martus gets updated when we're thinking about, the reporting side, like the actuals and things like that. So we'll talk about that. From there, we'll go into the planner section. That's really the meat of Martus. This is where we create budgets or maybe do new forecasts. There is a personnel budgeting module as well. So being able to budget headcounts, and it's permission based as well. So if certain users don't have permissions to see those details, they're not going to be able to. Those cash flow forecasting components. And then one other thing I'll mention is just the type of user that I'm logged in as right now. So I'm an admin user, and what that means is we have access to see and do everything in Martus. But we know that you're going to have users in the system that should not see and do everything. And so you're able to work with their roles and permissions, and then also limit them based upon like dimensions. So what I mean by that, I'll pull up Ed here as an example, and we go to Ed's permissions. And you can see here that he has access to certain areas of Martus. Personnel budgeting is off limits to him, and certain other features that he just doesn't need. Beyond that are the dimensions. And I have 3 dimensions configured in my demo environments. We can do up to 8 dimensions. I've got a location, department, and project. And basically what we mean when it comes to users is I can say, Ed, you only get access to one location or one entity. And inside of that one location, we're going to give you access to just facilities. So when he logs in, his menu number 1 will be reduced, right? He's not going to see everything on the menu that we see as an admin. And number 2, the data he's able to work with for budgeting or looking at reports, that data is going to be automatically filtered based on those permissions. So as an example here, if I'm Ed and I'm logged in as Ed and I was only restricted to that facilities department, when I log in, I'm looking at this. These are the charts that I would see. We probably would clean this up, with you didn't have any income, so we'll probably just get rid of some of those widgets. But point here is he's going to be automatically filtered on the reports. So if I come to the income statement, right, that's all I'm going to see, just my areas that I've been given access to. I wouldn't even see other departments or locations for that matter as an option to choose. But we're an admin, so we get to see and do everything here for the demo purposes. Now, a couple things on these pre-built reports. So I mentioned on the dashboard area, there are several pre-built reports, and a lot of these too have a lot of flexibility built into them. So let me explain what I mean by that. First of all, notice the rows. They are set to the account view, which is why we see a flat listing of accounts there. Second, the columns. Those are set to months. So we've got January through September showing right now for actuals. I've got budget for September, the monthly variance, year-to-date actuals, budget, and variance, annual budget, and then what's remaining. Now, I can quickly modify this view. That's where the flexibility comes in, not just with the data that I see by mixing and matching filters, to slice and dice the data that way, but I can also say I want to see maybe a departmental view on the rows. We'll load that. And then the departments you'll see are in the rows there. So summary view by departments, or let's just show it current month and year to date by department. And you can see there's other time periods, quarterly, year over year, or you could even expand and do mix and match of dimensions on rows and columns, but expand by column on our departments. And I've got it now in an account category view, kind of like a summary level of accounts. So lots of flexibility. You can save default views when you're in those. You can also save reports. So if you want to get to a certain view next time with the click of a button, you can do that. One other thing I'll point out, let's just go back to current month and year to date for now, is the coloring here, right? So blue on the screen, anything in blue in Martus is going to be drillable when we're looking at these numbers. And for instance, if I drill into office supplies, it actually makes an API call and pulls in transaction detail from, like, say, Gentact or Business Central. I know those were a couple that were mentioned earlier. And so that transaction detail comes into Martus, and you can see like memos, descriptions, and things like that. So that's actually one of the reports here. It's a transactions report. It's kind of like a general ledger detail report. And you can filter it for other accounts and dimensionalize it and so forth. Look at other dates. But all those reports pre-built here will be available for users and automatically filtered based on their permissions. Now, they can be exported to Excel. They can also be exported to PDF. And there's other features that you could do with these as well that I haven't shown just yet. So those are some pre-built reports, and there is a custom report builder as well. Just a quick overview on this. So let's say that you wanted to put columns in some very specific orders, and you want to do calculations on columns and do some other formatting. That's where the report builder comes in. And for instance, if I go into this butterfly report, as I call it, what I've done on this one is I've created some KPI cards, looking at just some revenue, current month revenue, our cost of goods, that gross margin, and so forth, current month, and then I've got some year-to-date numbers. Of course, being pulled from the report below. And you can see on the reports, the reason I call it a butterfly report is that on my left wing, I'm doing current month, and my right wing, I'm showing year-to-date with my accounts down the middle. Now, you can certainly change that, right? And if I go into edit mode here, I have the ability to drag and drop columns. I've actually got other columns that are hidden right now. And you can do other settings, for those data sources you want to pull into the report. You can go back, multiple years, look at different budgets, different forecasts. And then, of course, like I said, filter it down and add other styles and formatting options. All right, let me talk a little bit about the updater. So depending upon the integration, if there's an API integration like with say Gentact or Business Central, those API type of integrations, we have other ones as well, but there is a nightly sync that pulls in updates for the actuals when we're talking about reports, as well as the dimensions and accounts. So each night, if you add a new account, or if there's a new location, department, project, or other dimension that might be configured, those sync in automatically each night. Otherwise, if you don't want to wait for that nightly sync, say I add a new department now and I want to start budgeting for it, I can click that button and sync on demand anytime as well. All right, let's come over here to the planner section. I don't really see anything in the chat or Q&A just yet. Like I said, if you do have some questions, feel free to drop them in there and I'll try to address them along the way. But the planner area, this is where we are creating budgets. And so I'm going to actually start here under planner setup. And you can see I can have this create budget option. This is an admin section for creating new budgets, where it could be an empty budget, starting from scratch, nothing in it. Base it on a prior year's budgets. So you choose, one of those prior years forecasts or budgets that you'd want to start with as a basis for next year's budget. And when you do that, there's going to be some options here. If I want to select just the framework, meaning the budget worksheets only, I can do that. If I want to include the worksheet lines, but zero everything out, or I can have the worksheet lines, keep the values. So there's several options about getting this set up. And all that gets set up, real easy, and the worksheets then are created. So let me talk a little bit about then how we budget. So once we get that in place, and those could be automatically created as well based on actuals or, like I said, to prior year's budget. Planner summary here, talking about how we're actually going to budget Martus now. This is a consolidated view of the budget that's being worked on for 2025. Now, you're going to see some other reports pre-built for analysis on the budget, side-by-side comparisons. If you do different versions or want to compare it to actuals from last year or budget from last year, right, you can easily do that side-by-side comparison. But as far as how we budget Martus, this consolidated view, there's things going on behind the scenes. And so Martus is a very collaborative environment. And behind the scenes of this, the way we facilitate that collaboration, I'm going to drill into office supplies there. The way we facilitate that is through budget worksheets and then the user permissions regarding dimensions. So what I mean by that is as users are working in their different worksheets that they have access to based on their permissions, Martus is going to take everyone's work from all of those different areas and consolidate that in real time into one overall budget. So you can see everybody's work coming together in real time, and then the effect there on the bottom line of that budget. Okay, so to go back to something Stacey said before, if if you're doing stuff in Excel now and you're sending spreadsheets back and forth, worried about, do I have the right version? Is a cell reference broken, a formula broken, right? All of that goes away, and we automate that here in Martus. So you're going to see similar functionality over here that we saw before in the reports, where you can certainly filter it down with your different dimensions. You can modify the rows for different views as well as the columns. So same flexibility here as well. But let's go to the worksheets. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. In other words, this is where people are going to come. They'll see the worksheets that they have access to, and then go into one of them and start working on their budget. Now, before I actually do that, notice over here to the right, most of these are still open, meaning people are working in those worksheets, but there's been a couple that were submitted. So what's going to happen is when they submit their worksheet, it's going to lock it down, and it'll send an email to whoever that approver is. And notice you can have one or more than one approver at different levels as well. And they're going to come into Martus, review the worksheet, and then they can approve it or deny it and leave any comments back to that user. So in this case, it was approved. Left some comments back, but if we were to not deny it, we would say, let's unlock that worksheet, hit deny. It'll send an email back to that owner there. They're going to go into the worksheet, make updates, and then resubmit it. All right, so what does that look like? How do they actually create their budget? We're going to click that pencil icon, going into a budget worksheet. So this is very specific to, in my setup, this location and this department. Now, I'm going to remove that just for a second. So I'm working in this area of the budget, and on the worksheet down here, I've got some budget lines. And I've got a project tag. So there's different ways that this might be configured with dimensions, but this is how my demo environment is set up. As far as, asking the question, where do those budget lines come from? Well, they could be added here for two ways. Number one, I can add a line up here and select an account. These are the accounts that would sync in from the accounting software. Or they could have been preloaded like mine were based upon prior year's budget or based on actual. So when I click this view reference data, you're going to see those same lines, except I've taken out salaries from the budget because we're going to talk about that separately when we get to personnel budgeting. So I've got this reference area up here at the top, and it's designed to help people, get that point of reference to maybe work on their budget down here for next year. There are other points of reference as well. You can drill into the actuals like we talked about before. So right now I'm showing my actuals through September there in blue, and then budget for the last 3 months of the year. So my current year in my environment is 2024. We're saying that we're closed through September, and we've got that for reference here inside of the worksheet. Now, as far as getting this going, I could say let's initialize. And when I initialize the worksheet, I could take actuals from the current year and mix that with budget as well. So we're not through with the current year just yet. So let's take the last few months of budget from 24 and apply those to 25. I can do an increase or decrease on that. If I leave it at 100%, you're going to see I basically just copy down the same amounts, right, from the reference area, legal fees, as a starting point for that next year's budget. Now, I can also easily click into a budget line, tab through, type in some amounts, hit enter, and save it. That's not the most common way, but they can certainly do that. This little calculator icon. So a lot of our clients like to use this. And the reason why they like to use this is because it gives them some quick adjustments. And what I mean by that is I have some quick calculations here. And I can also put notes, which I'll get to in a second. So I'll give you a couple examples. Let's say we want to budget a monthly amount of supplies, $100 a month, preview that. See, it's a monthly spread. I could do a weekly spread. And let's just start it back on the first, actually, instead of another setting there. Let's see, let's preview that. So you see there's 5 weeks in January, 4 in February, and it carries that weekly spread through the 12 months. Biweekly spreads, quarterly or annual. So maybe it's an annual amount, and we just want to spread it evenly across the 12 months. Or you can do custom spreads, think of like, days in the month or working days in the month. You can do adjustments by percentages. You could add or subtract other amounts. This copy existing values feature is nice because we say, let's maybe look at the trailing 12. And let's take the trailing 12. In other words, we're going to capture that seasonality there. Now, this is just demo data, so in theory, you'd have seasonality in some of these budget lines. But let's apply an adjustment to that. Let's increase it by 7%. So notice the 1523 becomes 1630. And notes go here, right? Whatever those assumptions are, or why they've budgeted a certain amount for each month, they can put those notes in, copy the same note down, or of course do other adjustments and add other notes. But let's go ahead and save it. And then you'll see back in the worksheets, that line just got updated. The icon's blue now, which indicates that there are notes on that line. And as I hover over, I can see those notes. All right. So just looking, got a quiet group today, and that's okay. Again, if you have questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A. Happy to address those with you. All right, so again, talking the typical user experience here. And this is their main worksheet, right, for a particular area. Now, there are some other features. You probably saw like our software subscriptions when we came into this. That icon was a little bit different, and the amounts were already there as well. So basically what this is, it's called a special purpose worksheet. We say SPW for short. And you might want to itemize certain budget lines. So, here's different software subscriptions that we've got. We're just listing them out. They're all set to post to my software account. And so because of how that's set to post, it's going to aggregate those totals, concatenate notes. And this is that one line that we saw in the worksheet, but we've got all the detail listed here. Now, the other thing that happens is you can create calculations or formulas. So think of like some driver-based planning. This is a very simple example where we've got a rate, which is the amount per month that we pay per user, the number of users, quantity there, and then we multiply those together to get that 325. So those are just some drivers in the calculation. There's lots of different use cases for that. Think of driving revenue based on certain volumes and enrollments, attendees, different things like that, rooms, all that good stuff. Those could all be set up in special purpose worksheets. If you've got census and occupancy rates, let me give you an example. Something like this. The daily rate being charged and all that census and things like that to drive revenue. So, and then based on this, you could actually say, let's take the census and drive some expenses from that as well. So all that can be built out in these special purpose worksheets. All right, well, let me just kind of wrap up the worksheet then. At the top, notice the attachments here. So if you have any supporting documents that you'd like to upload to this area, or the users would, they can do so. And then when they're all finished, they'll hit submit and lock. And that's when it locks this worksheet down, and it sends an email to whoever that approver is, who then comes into Martus. They're going to see the worksheet just like we see it here. And the only difference is it'll be locked down, right? Preventing any unintentional changes to that as it moves through the approvals. So then they would approve or deny it and leave any comments back to the user. So to bring this full circle, let's go back over here to our planner summary. This is where we started in the planner section, that consolidated view. We just did some work on the accounting department. load that, and you'll see there's our work already consolidated into the overall budget. All right. And I meant to do one other thing here. Let's see. We were talking special purpose worksheets about, driving the revenue to summarize that in those worksheets as well. You can also do other allocations, or if we go back to the budget worksheet, so if you want to allocate like some overhead or indirect, you can do that as well through those SPWs. Let's see. Of course, you can have revenue lines in the worksheet. That's what I meant to show before. We were just looking at expenses, but let me show some other, right? So you can certainly budget for income in here as well, using an SPW or not. So you've got multiple options there. All right. Well, one other thing I'll point out before we go over to personnel budgeting is forecasting. So we've got clients that will do mid-year reforecasting. They may do monthly reforecasting or quarterly reforecasting. There's a couple different ways that they might approach this. If we come here and I go back to 2024, so again, planner setup being one of the admin areas for getting new budgets or forecasts created. The way that this works is you can take an existing budget, make a copy of that, and then in that new copied version, which I've already done down here, you can load actuals. So in my forecast 9+3, I loaded actuals January through September based on my calendar year here. If you're on a fiscal year, of course, we would reflect that as well. And then I've got the actuals being loaded through September. And so if we go back to our worksheets, what that means is, let me come back to 24, and here's our forecast 9+3. You're going to see the same worksheets that we were looking at before. The only difference is when we click into a line, you'll notice that those are grayed out, those first 9 months, right? Those are the actuals we loaded in. And then you've got the last 3 months open there to make some new projections or new adjustments. And there's other tools you can use to do those updates there as well. There's a burn rate feature. There's an option that we call flat to budget, where you can realign it to something that's in reference. So if you want to get it back to the original budget amount, remove any variance there from the actuals, you could do that. And then the other option here is this forecast module. So this is that kind of that quick high level for admins to take and say, what if, based upon a current budget, you always choose a source budget here. What if there was a, funding decreased or funding increased? And the way that these work is you select the dimensions. And if you want to use the account level or just account categories for more summarized views, you can set that up based on the current budget. When we go into one of these, you're going to see I've got this grid here. Here's the current budget and those areas at the high level we chose by department and account category. And so this first scenario is, what if we get a 10% funding decrease? What if some of our funding is dropped? And so we select lines or individual cells as well. And when we do so, you'll see the adjust selected box comes up. And I click on that and it says I can now enter a flat amount, increase or decrease, or a percentage adjustment as well. And you can also put notes in. So I've already done those adjustments on this. I've got a 10% decrease I just applied to all those lines. And then same decrease. It's a funding increase. That's the best case scenario. My worst case scenario is a 25% funding decrease. And so I do the same thing over here on these lines, but with a decrease. Of course, modify the expenses accordingly. At the very bottom, we'll click the results. And then you'll see here's the current budget. What if funding increases? What if it decreases? And as we're looking at this, you'll see those differences compared back to the budget that we based that on. So the overall bottom line, we would be at that with the settings that I applied here. So that's one option, the what if, and there's also multi-year. So multi-year works the same way. The only difference is instead of having independent scenarios, you have make an update in 1 year, it's going to roll forward to those remaining years. And then you can stack other adjustments on top of those other years. All right. Going to move over here to the personnel budgeting area now. And these are the scenarios for personnel. I've got two right now for 25. Just as we mentioned in the planner section, you can have different, versions, iterations, scenarios there. You can do the same over here. Now you can start with the base scenario, which should be really kind of where everybody's at right now, payroll wise, and then make a quick copy of that. And in that new copied version, what if we did some COLA adjustments, or what if we added some new positions? So it is going to be position based. When I come to my positions tab, you can see a listing of all these positions. I have employees attached to those as well. You may or may not want that. That's up to you. It's optional. Um, Also optional is you might not want to list out, in my case, like 7 counselors. Maybe you just want to say, I want to have one counselor position that represents 7 FTEs. So you're going to have those options as you work through this. If I go into one of these, maybe like the controller here, we're tracking a few different things, and you're going to see the FTE count for this position. It is specific to Walter, so Walter is a 1 full-time FTE. There's that pool option I was mentioning. Start and end dates. So left blank like this, we're telling Martus to budget all 12 months. But if you wanted to, say someone was seasonal, you can enter those dates, or you're not going to hire someone until a certain like mid-year. That's when you would enter those dates, and it would only calculate for those periods. Otherwise, it's going to calculate, in this case, for the full year. Then down below, you have the dimensions of where they need to hit the budget, right? What are those budget areas for this position? Now, let's say we need to allocate someone across locations, departments, projects. We have personnel allocations for that as well. You can allocate to any set of dimensions. Before I leave this screen, though, notice the pay types. These are the different ways that employees would be compensated. So their pay, benefits, taxes, those are actually items that as you go through your onboarding, you set those up. I'm going to come over here to personnel budgeting, pay types. Every organization is going to have some similarities, but if you think about things like different stipends or medical insurance, you can, if you wanted to, you could set those different tiers of coverage and what the organization is paying on behalf of the employee at those different levels. So that's going to vary from organization to organization, and similar like retirement matches. So in this case, I got one set up where there's a waiting period. The first 3 months, there's no match. And then when they become eligible, which in my case, it's month 4, and thereafter, they're going to get a 5% match. And that's going to hit based upon whatever pay type we assign here. So if someone has salary, they've got the retirement match, it'll start 5% after their 4th month of employment. All right, so those get added to positions. And by the way, all this detail, positions, employees, compensation, if you come over here to our scenarios, you can see how that can be, there's an import option for that as well. All right, so click view detail from this position, and it's going to take us to a detail screen where we can see a breakdown by pay type for this position. So what each annual amount is for salary, bonus, medical insurance, taxes, fully loaded there, about 125. And then the breakdown by month as well. Now, from this screen, if I remove this filter, let's just pretend that, we were going to take everybody on salary. And what if, and we would do this in a different scenario, but what if we did a 5% increase in salary? I'm just going to start it in February so you can see the difference. What would that look like? All right, so those positions just got updated. You're going to see that jump or the bump there for 5% on each of those. Now, anything dependent on salary, think about like your retirement matches, the taxes and those things, all of that just got updated as well. So it just flows through the scenario. And the idea is you can have these different scenarios, compare them, and then figure out which one you'd actually like to use in the overall budget. going to recalculate that back to the original rate and reset that. Okay, now regarding allocations, I'm going to take you to two spots here. First of all, the setup, which again, you can import allocations for personnel if you need to as well. You'll see that import option. But let me show you what this looks like here on the screen. So Walter, before any allocations, if we looked at that scenario, he would be hitting those dimensions and those accounts in those dimensions. However, we're going to say we want to allocate Walter. So down here, we have these target lines down below. All you're doing here is you're selecting, which dimensions we want to allocate Walter to. And in my case, I got that project tag, so I can also change up the projects. Over here are the defaults. So 50% allocated to this area for the year, month over month. But if I needed to, I can change that on a monthly basis also. So we've fully allocated him 100%. If we were under allocated, it would remain on those primary dimensions. And the system furthermore will not let us over allocate. We can't go above 100% in this segment. All right, so then what does that look like on the reporting side? So I'm going to come over here. We're going to filter for Walter. And we're going to hit load. And you're going to see here's Walter's compensation, all before allocations on those primary dimensions, the italics there. When we view it with the allocation, here's Walter, how we set up the allocation, fully allocated, and then split across these different departments. Now, like I said, I could have chosen other locations, other projects as well, and it would have split it out accordingly. Now, going back to that comment on flexible reports, there's other report views you can get here as well. So if I wanted to say, let's look at it in a dimensional view, and for instance, here's everybody on my marketing department. We've got 5.2 FTEs. Here's a little bit of Daisy in there, the CEO. She was allocated. I got some vacant positions as well. So you can see those roll-ups, or furthermore, just use your filters. If I want to see everybody in a certain project or grant, if I want to see certain departments, right, you can do that as well. Now, when we like a scenario in personnel and we say, yes, this is the one, we're going to come to the summary screen. And it's on this screen where we're going to say, let's post it back to one of those budgets we're working on. So we select the budget, hit post to existing budget. When it goes back there, it's going to hit those worksheets based upon the dimensions and accounts. And so it's going to be in summary. And the reason I point that out is to say, most times you don't want those employees, their names posted back to the worksheets. So all of that detail is going to stay in the personnel budgeting module, which again is a permission-based area. So otherwise in the worksheets, it would be showing in summary. Now, if you did need to post it by employee and you're posting payroll to the GL in your accounting software by employee as well, and you have a way to track that through like the employee dimension, we could support that as well in Martus. We don't see it very often, but it could be supported. That way you could, if you needed to see budget versus actuals, we would sync that from those actuals from the accounting system. All right.
So we do have a question on personnel budgeting.
Okay, great.
It says, are you able to have wages based on a percentage of revenue for a specific revenue stream?
Okay, in that case, we could do that. It would not be done in personnel budgeting, but the way that would work is in those worksheets that we were in before, those budget worksheets, and using a what we call a reporting group, we would capture, where they at right here, we would capture like all revenue in a group, and then that could become the basis for the calculation that's being referred to there. So if we go into one of our worksheets, and let's go back just into the accounting one for the example that we were before. Maybe I should have done professional services, but that's okay. Work's going to work the same way. We go to our special purpose worksheets. And this is where you could build that in. So you could take that revenue group from the reporting group that I just highlighted, which is going to look at revenue. In my case, my group's looking at revenue across the whole organization, but you can be more specific if needed. We would add a line and we would look at a reporting group there and choose my all revenue when I got set up there. Okay. And there it is, revenue that's in the budget right now. If we go back to my info section, let's just create a new section here for let's call it that for now. And save that. All right, so notice here, let me just collapse those. Here I've got a new section going, and then based upon revenue, you can add a line. And you might want to build in some other drivers into this, which you certainly can, but just to make this real quick and simple for us, we're going to use, put in the same section, and then we're going to say, this is very rudimentary, but just to get a quick calculation here, I'll choose a formula. And let's say we're going to insert the revenue line that we did, and then multiply that by a certain percentage. Let's do it by, say, 5%. Oops. And notice over here, there's that 5%. I go to my info, and this needs to post maybe like to that salaries account. And I could choose a certain project and save. All right, so that's we're using that reporting group, and it could be driven or be used to drive, other calculations for salaries or something else. Good questions. Good questions. All right. I don't want to keep that right now, so I'll just delete those out. Anything else, Stacey? I don't think I see any other questions right now.
I do not, but that was a great one.
Cool. All right. Well, the last thing I will show then, and we'll wrap this up, is the cash flow forecasting piece. So just to give you a little bit of backdrop on how this works, we've got something that we call in the setup area amortization schedules. And basically what these do, these are just some examples here. You can create your own as well. These are determining the timing of the impact on cash and other balance sheet items. So for instance, these schedules get assigned to the income statement accounts. And so if, let's say, an expense is assigned this schedule, month 100%, and we budget $100 in January, and it's got this schedule associated with that account, we're saying we're going to pay it out in February, the month after we budgeted, month 1, at 100%. So AP would be decreased to $100 in February, and cash would be decreased as well. All right, so you can have those different schedules. Those get assigned to the accounts. I saw the question on the capital budgeted module of Martus. There's not a separate module for that, but you can budget for those capital items as well. And I'll show you a couple examples here in just a second. The accounts here. So if we scroll down to my income statement accounts, notice here's a default offset account for the balance sheet side. So a lot of those income accounts going through AR, and then a lot of those expense accounts going through AP, and you're going to see those default schedules assigned to them. Okay, so what that does then, if we come over to the cash flow forecasting, we'll go to our balance sheet impact report. And like I said before, this is all based on an underlying budget. So we choose which budget you want to base this on. And you're going to see the balance sheet accounts that are directly impacted from that income statement budget. And I can drill into that and see those underlying budget lines. I'll come back to that here in a few minutes as well, related to the question on capital expenditures. And then on the amort button, this is going to be an option to show like the schedule here for In this case, insurance, where we budgeted insurance in January, $50,000. Notice it's increasing AP in January, but then decreasing it in February. And then on the prepaid side, right, as we recognize that expense, it's going to decrease our prepaid. So that's the balance sheet impact. You can drill in and see those details. The other thing here is the projected balance sheet. And again, choose the underlying budget. And this will show us the impact on cash from that budget. For instance, if we've got cash and cash equivalents starting balances of 520, drops 83. So now we're at 436. And same thing with the other accounts. And you can see, for instance, on what's that, the prepaids, right? How that's being decreased as we're recognizing that expense. And of course, on that example on the accounts payable side, there's where that 50,000 drop happened. And there's a little bit more activity in there, obviously, but you can see that projected balance sheet here. The last report is the statement of projected cash flows. And I like this one the most because it's going to show us the reason for a projected increase or decrease in cash. For instance, is it coming from the operating activities? Now, this change in net assets, that's the net gain or loss coming from the budget that we've chosen up here. And that'll tie back to that budget. And then you've got your investing activities that can be built in. You've got financing activities as well that you could build in to see the overall projected increase or decrease in cash month over month there. Now, as it relates back to that question on the capital items, when we're working with cash flow forecasting, if that's the case, we would build it into what we call special purpose worksheets. There's another use case for this. And oops, let me do my other cash flow one demo. And so I've got some templates. And here's where you could build in, like some other fixed asset purchases, sales of the fixed assets. The depreciation can be loaded in as well for those 12 months. And so that's where we would do it if we're using cash flow forecasting. Otherwise, if you're not using this area for cash flow forecasting, there's options to set those capital accounts as like other expense, and then do it right within the budget worksheets as well, and see the activity against those when you're looking at reports. All right. So just to kind of round this out then, what we've looked at is we started the dashboard area. We've had those on-demand reports for users automatically filtered based on their permissions, options to build custom reports, charts, graphs, KPI cards, the planner section, building budgets, doing new forecasts, personnel budgeting, and then the cash flow forecasting option. So hopefully this was beneficial for you to see. If there's any other questions, happy to entertain those now, or otherwise I will turn it over to Stacey.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen for a second here and be able to put up our final card with the information from Raina and Amanda. Sorry, here. Here we go. So we have the information for Amanda and Raina, of course, for Express if you want to reach out to us. I will be sending a copy of this demo as well as the transcript to anyone that would like it. And we really appreciate you joining us for today. Amazing questions, great demo. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And we hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And just thank you so much. That was really great.
Stacey, I'm seeing a blank screen. I don't know if everybody else is, but if they were looking for the information, we're not seeing it.
That's crazy. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a blank screen too. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. How about now?
There you go.
I told you this new technology. Sometimes it's better than I am. So there we are. Amanda, Raina, Express's website, email, phone number, all that good stuff. So thank you all again. Thank you so much. Oh, is there a question?
Yes, I was wondering if we could, Brian and David, myself, I have specific questions related to our organization. Can
Perfect.
we meet?
Yes.
Can we just stay on a little bit longer and just ask a whole bunch of questions?
Sure. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can stop recording. See what I can do here.
I'll have about 5 minutes myself before I need to hop to another call. So,
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.